Meta planning to deploy millions of Nvidia processors in the next few years, a deal that could add billions of dollars to Nvidia's balance sheet. Bloomberg Intelligence Global Head of Tech Research Mandeep Singh joins us now. Mandeep, first of all, does Nvidia need this? It's up pretty sharply off the back of this. I thought there was already pretty robust demand for what Nvidia is selling.
There is, and look, this is probably Meta's way of locking in that Nvidia supply. So not only are they using the GPUs, but they're also talking about using Nvidia's CPUs. So that's new. Traditionally, all these companies used x86 architecture and Intel CPUs along with the GPU cluster that Nvidia had. But now, with this deal, they're talking about using Nvidia CPUs. So that's one big change. The other thing for Nvidia here is Anthropic has had a very steep rise in the last few months. Anthropic models aren't trained on Nvidia GPUs. They're trained on Google TPUs, Amazon. So from that perspective, you have a company that's doing really well on the model side that is not trained on Nvidia GPUs. And so from that perspective, I think for both of them, it's important that Meta comes up with a model that is really good in terms of being a frontier model like Anthropic's that is trained on NVIDIA's latest cluster. And obviously, Meta needs to lock in the supply. So it's I think, symbiotic.
That's a good point, too, because also Gemini, of course, they're using Google's. In all of this, will other companies look at the advances of Anthropic, of Gemini, and start to rethink their supply chain because of that they don't want to be too reliant on NVIDIA?
There is that aspect, but what NVIDIA is saying is our latest Blackwell chips will give you 30x more token output than our prior architecture from Hopper. So for the same unit of power, you can have 30 times more output. And so that throughput aspect of NVIDIA chips is always there, and that ties into how good the model will be that is trained on the latest chips. So really what NVIDIA needs is companies like OpenAI, like Meta, training their models on NVIDIA's chips and having somewhat of an advantage compared to the ones that are not trained on NVIDIA.
Well, what's been the usage of AMD? Where do some of these other competitors stand?
I think AMD gets hit even with this tie-up between Meta and NVIDIA, where NVIDIA is now supplying the CPUs. Previously, AMD or Intel was the supplier of CPUs to the data centers for Meta. Now, with NVIDIA selling CPUs, that could have an impact on AMD.
Are you surprising that a company like Intel that has a government backing, there haven't been more political forces? Because this is what was talked about, right?
Yeah.
The U.S. takes a stake and pushes companies to start using Intel for things like CPUs. Are you surprised that we haven't really seen that?
Well, Intel still has the foundry capacity. So the difference between an Intel and AMD is Intel owns its foundries where it makes its chips. AMD is going to TSMC. So from that perspective, you're right. Intel it has a local foundry that all these chip makers could use, but obviously the government role comes into play in terms of pushing these companies to start using Intel Foundry more and more.
So just the one other concern that we have to bring up, as we do with any of these conversations, is the circularity of deals.
Yeah.
The fact that Meta already makes up a nice chunky portion of NVIDIA's revenue. Presumably that just reinforces that. You say it's a good thing for NVIDIA, but is there also kind of a dark side to the silver lining?
Look, all these companies have an ecosystem, so that circularity also exists in, Google investing in Anthropic and Anthropic using Google's chips. Same thing with the Amazon-Anthropic partnership. And at the end of the day, it is an ecosystem because you're optimizing on a certain chip vendor for your model training and your model inferencing. And you can't have a generic architecture. And that's why, they are very keen to partner with the companies of Meta scale. You want to make sure they optimize on NVIDIA chips as opposed to using someone else's.
Mandeep, thank you so much. Never a boring day in your world. Mandeep Singh of Bloomberg Intelligence. You probably wish for a boring day. That might be nice.